The more you give people, the more they think they deserve, because that gets normalized. And so there's this weird thing where, like, I am a disabled vet. You know, I am the 100% permanent and total disability. I receive it. I will for the rest of my life. The benefits for that are incredible. And yet I could still go to the VA and complain that the care wasn't perfect. Are they perfect? No. No country takes care of their vets like we do. I think the country does an incredible job. I think the veteran community does an incredible job. I think there are loud everywhere. And the problem is that most vets are quiet and keep to themselves because they're just like head down blue collar workers. So the argument that we're missing the mark, I struggle with, because I'm like, at what point is it enough?
Today on the show, we have a guy who's gone from military to millionaire. We dive into everything under the sun, including how the United States government is indeed supporting our veterans at a very high level. We talk about cars, and I'm telling you what, this guy is a car nerd. And then we talk about what it's like going through divorce, building businesses, the trials, the tribulations, the struggles, and also the joys that are on the other side of it. Hope you enjoy it. Have you really had to like flex to get comfortable with the camera?
Talking comes naturally.
Yeah.
The camera side took a while. The hook, the part that doesn't come good to me is the like sitting down and saying, okay, what's a good hook? What's a good title? I want to do all my content as like how to do this.
Yeah.
And Bo's like, that sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so now I just have to send him like, hey, I'm going to do a video on this. Here's like 6 ideas. And then he'll send me something else and I'll do whatever he says.
Do you use AI at all?
I should use it more. I use it for like generating scripts or outlines. ChatGPT at this point knows me better than I want it to know me. So it does a pretty good job. You know, when, did you do that? It went viral a couple months ago where people were like, hey, since you know me, like, it was like a therapy question.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, ChatGPT sucks. I like put it off for a week. I was like, I don't want to use this thing ever again. Cause it told me that I'm scared of, how did it word it? Essentially like, I keep going because I'm scared of irrelevance. And I was like, oh, well, that doesn't like really suck to hear. Like there's no like, basically ChatGPT was like, the only reason you're still doing what you're doing is because you don't want to be irrelevant when you stop. And I was like, oh, that's gonna be a lot to unpack. All right, but whatever. So I guess it's probably true, but you know, I guess that's a nice way to say you want to make an impact. But
yeah, you want to make a difference. You want to leave a legacy. You want to help people make change, which could also be said as you don't want to be irrelevant. But being irrelevant is definitely like the bold, brash.
Yeah, it's the way that you hear it and you're like, oh, yeah, all right, I'll work through that, I guess. But.
Yeah. Would you ever do a medicine journey, mushrooms, with that topic, that concept?
Maybe. I've done 2 now. They've both been great. The last 2 were awesome. I want to do, it's funny, Matty A is always like, that's one of his things, like every year, he's like, I think I'm going to do and he was kind of where I decided, okay, yeah, I'll put that as an annual goal. Every year I'm going to do at least one journey. I don't know what it's going to be this year, though. I don't know if it'll be mushrooms again. We'll see.
What did you get from the mushrooms?
The very first time was... Well, it's funny because the first time I did it was, I moved out of my house in July, and I did that, I think, like the first week of September. So I assumed that it was going to be me working through all the divorce shit, the trauma, the affair, the whatever. And instead, the first half of it was just like, actually, the first half was wonderful. The first half was like, wow. It's like, you know how you hear compliments your whole life and you're just like, kind of like, yeah, cool. And you don't believe them. So it was like me like telling myself compliments I've heard my whole life and like internalizing them and all the like, you're enough and all that crap. And then the second half was me in like the fetal position, sobbing about how my son was going to get affected by the divorce and how I needed to be a better dad and step my game up and this, that, and the other. But I came out of it with clarity, like, okay, the divorce doesn't, like, whatever, that's behind me, but being a good dad, right? How do I spend time with my kid and all that? So that was really good. And the second time, honestly, it was odd. It's kind of this culmination of things that happened in like the same week. So I did the Hormozy, like his VAM days thing, his new pitch where you go to his office and then you can pay to come out like 2 more times. And I had just done the first of those 2 sessions, and I don't think they call him a COO, but whatever, like the first hire they ever made, guy who used to work at Vanguard, basically ripped my whole business model apart and was like, community's not the model, like blah, 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 blah. And I kind of left floundering like, wow, I built this thing and I just got told by the coach I hired that it's nothing and I should do something else. And I went to do the mushrooms, like it was just happened to be the next day. And I kind of left that. It was like the first time in my life that I feel like I've played my whole life with a governor. Like I've always played at like self-limiting, like 70, 80%. The way I always describe it to people is like when you're, as a guy, when you're a young boy and you're drinking with friends and you're like wrestling, or if like a girl was to try to wrestle you and you're like, I could hurt this person.
Right.
But we'll wrestle at like 80%. And then they have, and then it's like, well, you're not really winning, but you're just kind of playing around. Like I felt like that my whole life. And so it was like the first time I was like able to look myself in a mirror and go, okay, no, you're ready to go all out. It's just what direction do you want to point it and where do you want to turn it to? And so basically it internalized just a whole bunch of confidence and belief and stop, there's a lot of stop second guessing yourself and go with your gut. And over the last 6 months, our business is, we went from doing 50 to 60 a month in revenue to the last 2 months, we're both over 300, and that's in 6 months. So I can't say that that's necessarily why, and I'm not going to come on your podcast and be like, go do mushrooms, it'll triple your business. Yeah. Also, it worked through some things that I'd been dealing with for a long time in the imposter syndrome realm and the, like the kind of where do I put my energy realm. And then the next day I ended up going out I was headed to like a mastermind on a lake. And I remember just sitting on the dock for like 6 hours, just like, this is what we're going to do with the business model. And between all of those things, I like revamped the whole thing and hired a COO and all kinds of stuff. It's been fun.
So did you shift away from community like Hormozi said, or did you lean back into
it? Yeah, I just revamped our entire onboarding system. I thought I was going to cap it and do something different. And then it blew up and I was like, well, we can do that other thing later. What I was struggling with was I was really struggling with the idea that when you get too big, it's hard to keep that like tight community feel, right? I think you guys felt some of the same growing pains. So I was like, we're going to cap at 500 and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then it blew up and we hit 500. I thought it was like a year and a half down the road. We hit it in 3 months. And I was like, all right, maybe we're not going to cap at 500 because people obviously want this, but so we started doing similar, like we were going to do by next year, we'll do 4 regional events, 2 big events. We just did our first big event for the year. We've got 2 regionals coming up. And so we're just really trying to do that in-person piece and hiring more coaches and more just doubling down. I kind of, the mushroom ceremony, I think, was part of the epiphany that was, well, mega churches exist because they still function. It's not that, because I had been thinking about it as like, we don't want to be a mega church where there's no community. And I realized those churches still thrive, which means that people still believe in them and there's still a community there. I just need to learn from them how to build those hubs and acknowledge that it's going to be more of a hub community than just a group of people where everybody knows each other. But neither one's a bad model. And I want to help as many vets as I can. So I'd rather have the bigger model and go from there. So we'll see.
Yeah, we went through a similar journey with GoBundance. Like we went through this notion of like, we've got to keep it small. We've got to keep it exclusive. We got to keep it intimate, right? And that's what a lot of the early people will tell you that they want. But that's not what they need. What they need is it to be as big as possible so that they can have more connections, right? Metcalfe's law says, more support and more nodes in the network makes a more powerful network. Yep. The thing that I've recognized on my journey with the GoBundance specifically on that is, who am I to play God and say, this person gets in, this person doesn't, this person gets in, this person doesn't? Like to your point, you want to serve as many vets as you possibly can. Who are you to say, hey, I can't help you because we hit this number that I drew in sand? Yeah. Like that doesn't serve you.
At this point, pretty much the only reason I tell people no. So I guess for reference, right, you have to be a service member or a vet. If you are a spouse of one of those and you want to join my community, then the person serving needs to be the one joining the community, and we'll let the spouse tag along. But we haven't let a spouse in that isn't with their partner, and that kind of frustrates some spouses. But at the end of the day, what it does is it allows for the entire community to be only people who actively serve or did serve honorably, which creates a really cool vibe. And it also allows me to be probably a little bit less PC than I would need to be otherwise. I'm not a very politically correct human. I like to say what's on my mind, and I have a community now where I can do that. And I can legitimately tell someone, the reason this didn't work is because you quit. So like, don't be a bitch and do it again. But also So like that's the one like requirement. And the only two reasons I ever tell anyone they can't join is if I get the vibe that they're all about money. So like they are looking at it as a business opportunity. How can I make money off this group? We won't let them in. Or if I've had a couple. It's always the syndicators. They will ping you and be like, "Hey, I've got this great deal. I'd love to get in your group because I know I can be of benefit with this
Yeah.
opportunity." And I'm like, "No.
No.
If I can tell you're only getting in the group to ask, you're not our fit. We
Right.
only want people in the group who are willing to give." The reason the community is cool is that everybody has the same like veteran like that stepping off point, right? We all have that same vibe, but then everybody in the group is willing to give back. I mean, we've got 7, 8 figure entrepreneurs in the group helping the guy who's been in the military for 2 years and just bought his first house. And there aren't a ton of communities where you have a veteran of that level who's willing to stop everything and help Nick, the new guy. And I think the only reason we've got that is because they know there's no upsells, there's no pitch, it's just giving back.
Yeah, it's just peer-to-peer
Yeah, it's
value.
wonderful.
It's peer-to-peer service, really. And that's kind of, most of those guys have, or gals have, that already woven through them, right? You don't get into the military unless you have a desire to serve.
Exactly. Yeah.
So from the governor perspective, what's interesting about that is I feel like there's a lot of times in my life I've been playing with the governor.
Yeah.
I finally figured out how to get the governor to maybe like I'm operating at 95%. That last 5 I think is the hardest little bit to crack. But even in the military, did you feel like you were operating with the governor, doing what you needed to do to get by? Like, did you have more to give in trainings and all of that stuff? Like, was there more in the tank that you could have poured in?
It's a good question. And I guess depending on which scenario you're asking, it's probably a little of both. So we'll say, as a whole, I think I did pretty good. I had a really great career. I think it's a little easier when the what great looks like is perfectly outlined. And so it's like, oh, well, I just need to do this, this, and this, and I will succeed. And so it's a little easier to play all out when the rules are there. And it's like, okay, here's your walls. When you got, your bumper plates,
Yep.
and you're like, just go right down the middle and hit the pins. It's like, cool, I just run straight. Than it is on the entrepreneur side where you're like, I'm going to bet on myself and do all this stuff, but also I really wish someone could tell me where to go.
Yeah.
On the other side to that, I mean, I tried out for special forces and I didn't make it. So, there's, I blew my knee out. They call it DOR, drop on request. So I could have theoretically gone back and tried out again.
Do you regret not trying out again?
Well, ironic. So it's kind of a funny situation. I had to wait 6 months to try out again to heal up and whatever, and I got stuck on recruiting duty within that 6 months. And anyone who's ever been in the military knows, like, you go on recruiting duty. There's no getting out of the going on recruiting duty. And 3 years of that, by the end of that, I was in much worse shape because I wasn't like 23 and just training for special forces. I was 26 and had been in high schools eating whatever food I could find to make. Recruiting is not an easy gig.
No.
But I was also married with a kid on the way by the time I got off recruiting duty. And so I was like, no, maybe like not the ideal time to go. 23 and single, special forces, no brainer. 26, married with a kid and a stepson. It was a whole different shebang. And I think, it is what it is. But
Why do you think that you have lived your life with the governor on? Like, what caused that? Was that parents? Was that society? Was that friends? Was that just how you were born? Was that just natural?
that's a good question. That's what I get for talking about ChatGPT and therapy. We're going to go into therapy today.
Yeah, I'm not ChatGPT, but I'm close.
It probably has something to do with family. And it's funny because we talk about this inner child and the trauma and all this stuff that comes up. And I've always struggled with that because I had an incredible upbringing. So my parents, are you familiar with the organization Family Life? They do these, they call them Weekend to Remember conferences. They work, it's like under Campus Crusade for Christ. Anyway, my dad was an accountant in San Francisco. He was doing just fine. And he decided one day, I want to go do mission work. And so my parents quit, moved to Little Rock, Arkansas, and they worked for this organization, Family Life. And they, for 25 years, traveled the country doing like weekend-long marriage conferences. And so I grew up in a world where everybody my parents worked with was like happily married. Their marriages worked because they worked on them. Nobody quit because you'd be the black sheep in your business and you'd get fired and all this stuff. But I grew up on support, like not wealthy. My parents, raised support to live, but a great role model. I mean, they've been married, I think last week was 43 years. Wow. And they, not to say they're perfect, but great role models for marriage and life and everything. So and no disparity there, but it was also a very religious upbringing. I was homeschooled. I was very sheltered. And so I would say, if anything, that governor probably came from the fact that I was the rebellious first child and I was the rebellious kid in my friend group. And every single person in that community, it was just like all the time, like, you got a speeding ticket, you're a bad kid. You did this, you're a bad kid. And nothing I did in high school was awful. I mean, I think I got drunk once, and it was like with my rugby coach at his house, didn't leave the house, you know. I was, by all accounts, a good kid, aside from a speeding ticket and a car wreck, which car wreck wasn't my fault. But in that world, it was like, this is kind of my issue with church as a whole. And I'm religious, but I don't attend. I have yet to find a church that I really love after the military, because I just feel like there's so much like unnecessary judgment or like, I don't say rules, but almost like shun if you don't follow like this. And I don't fit into that. And I think that, like, growing up in that world where if you don't do X, Y, Z, you're going to hear about how bad you did and whatever, probably is where that came from, was always second guessing, like, wait, am I allowed to go all out here? Because I feel like I've always been confident enough to, if I put my mind to something, I'll win. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I just hold back because I'm like, well, what if I win in a space where I'm also a 99I, so I want everyone to like me. So I'm like, man, if I blow everything out of the water, then I'm the asshole with an ego who... Right. So I feel like kind of all that, but I don't know.
Yeah, what's interesting is church is something that I'm leaning into right now. I'm very spiritually immature, I say. I'm maturing and I'm growing in it. But the thing that I struggle with the most, or have struggled with the most thus far, is that judginess, right? You get there and the pastor's up there presenting a message, and he's talking about leeches in your life and people that are, sucking energy and how they're bad people. And I'm like, well, wait, hold on. If we are truly going to believe in this construct of church, who are we to judge what they need in this moment of time? Because they may need to be the leech. Yeah. And so where I've really struggled with that is similar to what you're saying, which is the judgment. And we were talking about this earlier, like, I show up at church as me. Yeah. Like, that's what I think God, Jesus, whatever you believe in would want me to do, right? Well, if me isn't the same construct that everybody else has for their construct, now I'm viewed as like, why don't you dress up for church? Or my son wore shorts to church. Like, God forbid he wore shorts to church. Who cares? It was hot outside.
But it's a thing.
Wear shorts, right? But it's a thing. Like, I don't know where this Sunday best came from, but I think our Sunday best is just showing up as ourselves.
I agree.
And so I've struggled with that too.
Yeah. Do you know Alex Felice?
I do not.
I'll make an intro. He lives in Austin. He's a wonderful guy. He's a good friend of mine. And I don't know, this isn't his quote, but I don't know where it came from, so I'm just going to give it to him. But he said something the other day, and the quote was, always preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words. And that, I was like, that's the perfect example of, because I've had a couple business partners where they led with how religious they are, and it always ends terribly. Yeah. And I've kind of realized it's the guys like our friend Brandon Turner, who will not tell you that he's religious if you interact with him, but he's a great guy. And then you find out down the road, you're like, oh, like, he leads worship at his church and he's been religious his whole life. And you're like, oh, like, I can see that through the way that he is as a human without him telling me that. And there's plenty of people like that. It's the people that it's almost used as a, like, just omit all the terrible things I've done in life, because now look at me. Yeah. And that side, I struggle with that. I go to church and I'm like, man, because the me that is me, like, I don't hold back.
I swear.
I all the time. I just did that on one of my webinars last night. Someone commented right at the beginning of the webinar, was like, please no cursing. And I looked at it, I read the comment out loud, and I was like, you're on the wrong fucking webinar. And the whole audience was like, like, so I'm like, you're talking to 700 military guys.
Exactly.
Like, what do you want from me?
Well, and just be you, right? Yeah. And that's what's interesting about that too, from my point of view, is Brandon Turner doesn't preach, right? But he's actually somebody who's kickstarted my spiritual journey. So in COVID, him and his wife, who are both very musically talented, which they don't talk about often, started playing for their church on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And I stumbled on a video and I listened to the song and it just like resonated with me. Like, I just felt something. I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So I went down this crazy path of like Christian music, and it just really started to resonate with me. And so then, ironically, there was an opportunity for our daughter to go to a faith-based school, And it was like the stars were sort of aligning in a weird godlike
Yeah.
way. So I'm like, okay, let's lean into this. And I loved the music aspect of it, and I love the words of the music, and I love the feelings and the actions and the emotions of it. But then when I struggle, I go to church and I listen to the words being preached, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't really see that. Like that's not my lens.
Yeah. Having grown up, I mean, I'll tell you, I grew up in the Bible Belt, being surrounded by the Bible people, and I joined the Marine Corps, and it was like, all right, that was old me, and then now I'm like, okay, I need to get more involved again, and but I've found that you can have a lot of the same spirituality without the church,
Yes.
and I mean, admittedly, that's because we're human and we suck, but there is an odd, like, palpable level of, you kind of walk into it. Like, if you walk into a GoBundance place, and you go to a big event and there's all these dudes and they're being incredibly vulnerable about everything that's going on in their life. And they're talking about things that are so taboo to talk about because that's something that went wrong in their life. And you go to church and you will hear none of that because everybody's on Sunday best mode. And so it just feels fake.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that as you get into like the smaller groups settings, that opens up a little bit. But it was hard for me to reconcile because I'm like, well, hang on, I'm out with these Marines who are doing, they are by all accounts the most unholy of all people, but they're honest, and they're authentic, and they're real.
Yeah.
And then I go here, and like, yeah, we're doing the right things, we're saying the right things, but I can't trust that that's really what's going on. It's a weird dichotomy.
So in the Marines, you joined at what age?
Right out of high school. I signed on my 18th birthday because my parents wouldn't sign for when you're 17, you need parental consent. To this date, my mom will tell you that she didn't sign because she wanted to make sure it was my decision. She actually, I love my parents. They dragged me to every college that they could find in the state of Arkansas, and they won't tell you that they were trying to convince me not to join the Marine Corps, but I mean, actions, words, whatever. So on my 18th birthday, I signed up and I shipped out about, March. I signed in March. I shipped off in August.
So like basically right after graduation.
As soon as I could, yeah.
And why do you think you were called to the Marines, to the military?
Man, I don't know if it was called to the Marines so much as pushed out of Little Rock.
Got it.
I grew up, all those things, sheltered, homeschool, religious, whatever, which is all great. But in a town that had a stop sign about 15 minutes outside of Little Rock, and I wanted more than a stop sign in my life. I wanted to travel, see the world, and we didn't have any money. So, I didn't like school, didn't know what I wanted to study in school, screwed off enough that I didn't have free school. Well, what better opportunity to travel, see the world? Like the military knocks and they're like, yeah, hey, we can send you anywhere. We'll pay you to go there. And by the way, we're going to give you these awesome dress blues and you'll be confident in who you are as a person. I'm like, oh, that sounds great because I'm kind of a weirdo right now. Sheltered homeschool kid with an afro, like looked like Hyde from that 70s show. And it just seemed cool. And I was like, I'm going to do 4 years. I'll get the GI Bill. It'll pay for college. And then by then I'll know what I want to do. So I'll get out and go to school. And then that first 4 years was amazing. I mean, I went to San Diego for boot camp. I lived in Japan for 2 years. During that 2 years, I spent a year in Afghanistan. And you want to talk about some real growth in life. Go on a deployment with a bunch of dudes, live in the desert and think you might die. Went back to Okinawa, Japan. And from there, I got stationed in San Diego County. And I was like, dude, this is amazing. I've seen 13 countries in my first 4 years. I'm getting paid to do this. And every day I just hang out with my best friends. This is great. Why would I not do this? So I did it again, and then I did it again, and then I did it again. And I did it until I got promoted enough that I got stuck in a job that I hated because they're like, wow, you're so good at this. Here's a desk. You get to tell other people how to do it. I'm like, no, I want to do it. No. You don't get to do that anymore. Congratulations. I was like, this sucks. And that just happened to coincide with me having reached financial freedom. I was like, well, I don't need to be here anymore. So I'm going to leave. And had it not been for the kind of the desk becoming an unfulfilling side of the Marine Corps, I would have stayed in. It wasn't about the money. I loved it.
What was Afghanistan like?
Hot.
Nasty.
It's interesting. So on my drive to pick up the rental today, I mentioned it casually when we were talking earlier. The gentleman who was taking me had moved here from Cuba like a year and a half ago. And he was just talking about all the opportunities here and how much he loves it. And I laugh because we were in this weird spot in life right now where there's a lot of Americans that will love every country but America. And you can tell because they haven't left. And that's why. And anyone who leaves America comes back and goes, okay, I get it. And anyone who immigrates here loves it. And so Afghanistan was probably the most that I've ever had that reaffirmed. I mean, I've been to some, like hiking to Machu Picchu in Peru, you pass some pretty poverty stricken areas. But I was at a place in Afghanistan where, you bathe in one part of the canal, you walk downstream and you drink in one part of the canal, you walk downstream, you bathe in that part of the canal, you walk downstream and you defecate in that part of the canal. And you just forget that the person a mile up the canal is doing the same thing and they're defecating where you're,
Drinking.
and they live in a mud hut and they live a life that would make most people just go internal, and they're happy, and they're mostly right. They've got their problems. They've got some things that they do or say that are odd. But I mean, you go there, you drive through the desert, and you do all these things. And I mean, I got blown up at one point in a truck, and I'm fine, whatever. But you see some stuff, and you do things. And you're 20. And I was like leading convoys of 80 vehicles through the desert and leadership opportunities and all this stuff. And you come back to the U.S. and the amount of gratitude you have for where you live. And then it's crazy now. I hear people that have, people that are close to me that have issues with everything. And not to say that the country is perfect. I'm like, dude, leave. And they're like, what are you? I'm like, no, I'm not telling you to move to, South Africa,
Right.
like leave America. I'm telling you, get your passport and go travel to South America, Asia, Africa, Europe, wherever. Go anywhere. Maybe not Paris. Go somewhere where the people actually like have to work to survive. And come back and spend a month, and you'll love everything about America. You will. It's kind of interesting how much people, it's just, yeah. Anyway,
But did you have some like, I'm assuming, and I wasn't brave enough to serve this country, but I'm assuming you're sitting in the desert. You don't know if you're going to get blown up tonight or tomorrow. You're a target for most, but a hero to some, right? Because you're there doing some great work. Yeah. What kind of demons do you have to face when you're over there? You're by yourself at 20.
Honestly, it's kind of funny because you're probably so young you don't think about any of that. For me, it was like a camping trip with 50 of my best friends, and it's had its ups and downs, and there were some really crap moments, but the like feeling of purpose and I'll tell you now that I look back, right, Afghanistan was probably not like, it's funny because you feel all these ways, but maybe Afghanistan wasn't necessarily the place we should have been, but at the time, you're on a mission, you have a goal, and nothing else matters. You don't have bills to pay. You don't have, there are ladies in the room, but you don't have women problems because you're on a deployment with a bunch of dudes. There's no like drama.
Right.
It's like being with your football team for 7 months and just like, I just beat my chest. I go to the gym, I eat my food, and I hope I don't get shot at. And if I do get shot at, I hope they don't hit.
Yeah, I shoot back.
And I don't feel like, it's interesting. So I started my entire brand because I asked, Brandon Turner was over for dinner when he lived in Hawaii, and I asked him if he could, like, how to write a book. Because when I was in Afghanistan, I kept a mission log and a journal. And so I can look back and be like, hey, on this date, I drove over a bomb. How did I feel that night? Oh, I felt like shit. But also I resented XYZ and I've been talking about writing that book for a little while, just as like what a normal person, not a Navy SEAL, went through in Afghanistan. I really should go back and read through it because I would be curious. Like I have my answer now, which is, I didn't really think too much of it because I was just dealing with the day to day. I was present. But I wonder if I go back through that, what I was really thinking and dealing with at the time, because I'm sure it was different.
And are there moments right now where you think like, man, if I could reharness that living in the present, I would be so much more powerful as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, as a steward of community? Or have you done a pretty good job of staying present?
Oh, I'm terrible at staying present. I joke, the only reason I take ice baths is because it makes me meditate.
Yeah.
And people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I can't. Like if I sit down and I'm like, I'm going to be quiet, my brain goes wild. But you get in cold enough water and for 5 minutes, all you can do is breathe. Mm-hmm. I'm terrible at turning the internal voices off and being present. My kid got me the other day when he was like, you're always so busy. I'm like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Because all that stuff is hard. If I could harness that to where this was, I just throw the phone out and like, this is the only thing I'm doing today is XYZ and I focus. And it's funny because you can tell a very noticeable difference in the days where I take my phone and I set it on the charger and I lock myself in my office and I just go for 4 hours. I'll get more done in that 4 hours than I will the rest of the week if I don't do that. And so it's very much, yeah, you give a guy a mission and a purpose and say, go forth and no distractions. It is interesting how much the world is a distraction. Kind of funny to that point, right? Because recently not married as of a year ago. And while that last few years of the marriage was not great, the time when I did have a spouse that was supportive was made a huge difference. And people talk about like, oh, who you choose as a spouse is, so that's all true. But it's interesting to think, like dating is such a massive distraction for me. And I joke with my COO, but I'm like, dude, being single again, there's some perks. Don't get me wrong. Like, there are some things that are great. I get to go out and date. I get to take some random person out to steak and see if we click, and it's kind of exciting, and there's fun new stuff. But also the number of people you have to talk to get on a decent date, and the number of stupid apps that exist these days or whatever, like it is a huge distraction. If I pick up my phone, I'm like, oh my God. Like, this is worse than anything going on in my business. So I've had to like intentionally turn off notifications on those and tell people like, I'm not going to get back to you. And so to your point, yeah, being present is incredibly powerful and very hard to do. And so I am very intentional about what notifications come through to my phone. It's basically just my number. And if it's not, when you had emailed me about this podcast, had my assistant not sent me a message on Slack, I would never have known that this email got sent because I don't check it.
You don't check it.
I try not to, as little as humanly possible. And those little distractions they can sneak up on you.
What led you though to creating the War Room? Like, how did you decide to take that distraction on?
You know, it's funny. I had been in a couple different masterminds. So this was actually pre-qualifying for GoBundance. Yeah. I had been in Bigger Pockets was they first, years ago when they launched the journal, they tried to do masterminds.
Yes.
And they failed. And I think they failed because it was free. Mm-hmm. But I did one and it sucked. And I did another group and it kind of And then I finally got one to stick. And I was in that group for probably a year and a half. And then I did one on, actually I've done one or two masterminds that were book specific. So the book Superfans by Pat Flynn. Yeah. I had a couple buddies that we all just read that together. It was a book club. We called it a mastermind. Sounds cooler.
Sounds more masculine.
I was in David Green's mastermind for a little while. I don't know if he's still doing that, but I was in that for a little while, and it was like $300 a month. And all of those were great. But what I realized was where a lot of these groups struggle, especially like Bigger Pockets when it was free or it was like $50 or whatever, is you're trying to pull people who have nothing in common but the real estate into a room and be like, hey, we know you grew up in completely different parts of the world, have entirely different backgrounds, different varying levels of success, but you both like houses. So like,
you should click.
Hope you stick, and that's not going to last. Mm-hmm. And I was just kind of thinking one day, I was like, dude, I like these mastermind groups, but you spend so much time just trying to get past like, what's your background? If there was a group that was just service members and vets, like, because what I realized was I went to a Bigger Pockets event. I've been to several, and the vets all find each other. It just happens. And it was before I had any kind of brand. I always ended up, closing the bar down with like 8 vets and maybe Scott Trench, but I won't call him out on this. But like, it was just the vets would just close, and it was, and then there was a day where they did hey, who owns how many doors? And like, stay standing if you own this many doors. And of the like 20 people left standing over 100 doors in that room, like 15 were vets that I was friends with. I was like, man, there is something here. So I just started talking to people. I was like, okay, I'm going to start this. We're going to see what happens. Ironically, a friend of mine called and was like, hey, dude, have you ever thought about starting a mastermind event? While I was, in imposter syndroming myself out of it. Like, yes, let's do it. And so we started it. And then he kind of washed out. But by then we had 50 guys and they loved it. And we just kind of slowly played with it until one day I actually never felt comfortable charging high ticket. One day I decided to hire a sales team that was comfortable charging high ticket, and they were like, "We're going to push the price." I'm like, "Whatever you got to do. I don't like asking for money." And so then we finally opened up to where you had enough revenue to hire a team and build out. And so it kind of, the first probably 3 or 4 years was like $50 a month. It was $100 a month, and it was really cool. But it was community, but there weren't a whole lot of resources. It was just the community. And then over the last 2 years, we've finally been able to start like pulling coaches in and really building it out and doing events. And it's been really, really cool. And but you know what's funny about it is everyone thinks we're a real estate mastermind because that's just what I'm known for. We tried to be much more of a whole life picture mastermind, whether that's index funds or real estate or whatever. But the thing that is probably the coolest for me to hear is anytime we do a live event, inevitably somebody, if not a lot of people, pull me aside and say, man, this was the first time that I have felt home since I left the military. Like I can be myself. I can talk about my struggles with PTSD or getting out of the military. I can swear and drink and whatever, but I can be me. And this is the first time since I left the military that I felt like I belonged. And that to me is way cooler than any of the financial freedom stuff. Is like we're legitimately saving lives, and we're creating a culture of people that are incredible human beings, where they can let their guard down and exist.
You didn't set out to create that. That was just a byproduct of what you created, right?
I got lucky. If you ask my friend Alex, he'll tell you that I got lucky because I never became the spotlight. And he'll word it as, well, Dave was never cool enough that anyone joined for him. But he's right. It was never about me. It was about pulling friends together. It was about pulling community together. It was about just creating a space for people to hang out. And so maybe some people come to the group for me, but I don't think that's really the case. And so it's cool because it's just people bringing friends into a group of friends that, it's cool.
Want to do life together, that have done life together in battle, in combat, and are like, hey, let's transition this to maintain this brotherhood, this sisterhood, this bond that we have.
Yeah.
And what's really neat from my perspective is the way our paths crossed was very unique.
Oh yeah,
because you had reached out. Yeah, you had reached out to David, and David was supposed to speak. I believe it was on a Saturday morning on one of your calls. This was early on in your guys' journey.
Very early.
And he was in Steamboat, and I reminded him that morning of the call, and all of a sudden I start getting texts from you, like, hey, like we're all here hanging out, but like David, is he going to show up? And I used to like get on all those calls to make sure he would show up, and he like wasn't there. And I'm calling him. He's not answering. I'm texting his wife. Nobody's answering. So I'm like, hey, Dave, like, I don't know where David is, but hopefully he's okay. But I can just riff and just go. And so we just started going and delivering value, you and I, back into your community. And I think it was on like the 6th or 7th hole that David all of a sudden shows up. And he's like in the middle of his tee shots, giving advice, giving feedback and stuff. But what I really resonated with about you is you just rolled with the punches. You're just like, okay, cool. Like we're just going to make it work. We're just going to find a way to derive value back into our membership. We're going to roll with the flow. We're just going to make it work. And, it would have been very easy for you to be like, those guys are assholes. That sucked. Those whatever. But you were just like, hey, it's cool. No big deal. I hope you played well.
Don't tell David I said this, but it was probably more valuable for that to have happened than him to show up. And not because he's not a valuable guy, because obviously we all know he is. Yes. But the ability to ask the guy who sits next to him all day and runs his stuff how he is successful when there's no ego there. You're not going to be like, oh, David is so great. You're like, look, he does this. Yeah. And if my COO got on a podcast to talk about me, he'd say great things. But he would also tell you, man, there are days where Dave texts me like, stay the hell out of the house. I'm going to get stoned and watch cartoons. Yep. Today is not it, or whatever the thing is, right? Maybe not get stoned and watch cartoons. I'm so productive all the time. But there are days, like on content day, nobody comes in my house. And it is like known. If I tell him like, look, hey, if something has to happen at my house, you meet him outside and you do whatever. But do not come in the house. Do not text me. Do not call me. If something is not going to cost me $15,000, do not even think about touching it. Because content is such an important piece. But unfortunately, it's also a piece that requires you to be on. Mm-hmm. And if there is one like bad news thing that gets you fired up, your whole content day is screwed because you're just it'll show, and then Bo will yell at you. Yeah. And so there are days where but I'm not going to get on a podcast and be like, oh yeah, I am so so dysfunctional. Like I have to have all my meetings on Monday. If there's a meeting that's not on Monday, it throws my whole week off. I'm very creative. Like on Tuesday, you don't bug me. On Wednesday, he will. He'll tell you all that stuff about me. And I'll be like, oh no, let me tell you all my secrets to success, which I journal and I cold plunge and I wake up early, which none of that's really true because I'm very inconsistent. Yeah. So it was very valuable. And I still remember like taking notes from both you and from him when he was on from that call being very valuable. And I will say, to give some credit back to David, he said, I believe the phrase was, you kill more targets with a hand grenade than a sniper rifle. And that hit because I am a shiny object, like throw it all at the wall and see what sticks sky. And until then, I don't think I'd ever given myself permission to be okay with that because everyone tells you focus.
Yeah.
It's not always like not everybody wants to focus on one thing.
No.
And I'm definitely not that guy. So it was nice to have permission from someone like, oh yeah, well this guy's really successful and he said you're wrong, so I'm going to listen to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a fun call. And then I remember I sent you guys War Room shirts way back before we had this cool branding.
Yeah.
And I think it was you.
Yep.
Wore one at a Go Abundance event, and one of my friends texted me, was like, "Is this you?" I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah, I wore that at the Beaver Creek event. I believe it was in 2020. The only reason I remember that was because it was right on the heels of COVID. So there was this like weird, we had to get our temperature checked before we went in the room and all this like stupid stuff that happened. And I was actually looking back on that picture. I was talking to some friends recently, like you don't recognize how out of shape you are until you see a picture of yourself from previously. And I like saw this shirt and I was like, man, somebody should have told me to wear a bra. Like it was a great shirt. I loved the shirt, but it just didn't quite fit right. Like it was more of a fitted shirt and I wasn't a fitted shirt kind of guy then.
Well, that's where I'm at right now in my life. So we're getting there, but yeah.
So you've gone through this incredible journey. Now you're an entrepreneur, right? You're still a vet. That's probably always in your DNA. You still pour into that community. You're looking at what's going on right now in the political realm. Where are they totally fucking it up for vets?
Ooh. Honestly, the vet culture is going to shit on me with my answer. I don't think they are. I think I should look straight in the camera and say, I love vets and I advocate for vets, and y'all are some entitled socialist fucks. And I don't know if swearing's okay on your show,
great,
so
man.
great.
I love swearing. I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, it's weird, man. It's like, you could talk about the left or the right or the vets or the like the more you give people, the more they think they deserve because that gets normalized. And so there's this weird thing where like, I am a disabled vet. I am the 100% permanent and total disability. I receive it. I will for the rest of my life because of some injuries from whether it's driving over a spicy road bump or whatever, having my foot crushed under a truck, all kinds of random crap that nobody cares about. The benefits for that are incredible. And yet I could still go to the VA and complain that the care wasn't perfect, but it was also free. And what I've noticed is like, if you go to the VA with the mentality the VA sucks and they're going to be a pain in the ass to work with, you're right. And if you go to the VA with the mentality that you're blessed, that you don't have to pay for the care, and if they don't have the support, they'll, send you out for where you can get the support, then you're right. And it's just like the whole, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Like that's how veteran support is. Now, yeah, getting your VA disability claim through is a pain. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. I'm okay with that because I don't want the country to just give it away to everybody because we have a deficit. And I got a lot of heat from a lot of vets saying, look, I love my disability pay. It's very helpful to me. And I love the medical care and it's very helpful to me. But at the end of the day, if they revamp that system and it helps us as a country move forward, I'm okay with that. I don't think anyone's coming after vet benefits, if for no other reason that it's political suicide. Yeah. But I mean, the VA loan is the best mortgage product in the world. There's nothing that I know of worldwide that'll go zero down. There's a physician's loan and a USDA loan, but they have worse stipulations, and they're not as easy to use or to earn. VA loan's incredible. VA disability, if you earn it, like, the benefits behind that and the fact that it goes on for a long time and it's tax exempt and it's great. And then there's the GI Bill. You go to school. There's all these other grants and things in there. If you're 100% disabled, if I owned this ranch, I wouldn't pay property tax on it. Like there's a lot of really cool
you want to
things.
partner on it?
Yeah, I think if I do that, it'd be 50%. But I mean, like, there's a lot of really cool things that different states and different that are just open. There's a Chapter 35 benefit where my kid will get up to $50,000 to go to school from me being disabled without touching my GI Bill. And then I still have the GI Bill on top of that. So I'm going to be able to go to school and get my pilot's license because I don't want to go to school, but I might as well use it for something. And then he can still go to school. And so there's all these incredible benefits. So are they perfect? No. Are they so much better than any other country that it's like there's no conversation there. No country takes care of their vets like we do. So the argument that we're missing the mark, I struggle with because I'm like, at what point is it enough? Like, I don't like the homeless vet thing. I don't like the suicide thing. I don't think either of those is the government's fault. Neither because they're not doing enough or because they're pushing that. Those are issues with the suicide thing, but largely is because people leave the military and they lose their sense of purpose, their sense of identity. Those are things we can fix culturally within the veteran community. The homeless thing, I don't, there's so many opportunities there. I struggle with that because I'm like, well, I feel bad for you, but also it's probably self-inflicted. It almost always is. And at what point do we say, hey, look, guy, you screwed up. It's not the government's fault that you ended up on the street. You had the VA loan, you had the disability, you had this, you had this. Like, what went wrong? And so I think the country does an incredible job. I think the veteran community does an incredible job. I think there are loud assholes everywhere. And the problem is that most vets are quiet and keep to themselves because they're just like head down blue collar workers. They're not going to be the guy you hear on TV. You know, I'm not going to go and run into politics and be like, oh, vets problems.
Yeah.
Because everything's great.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep I'm less government. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think you were born with that attitude of gratitude? Do you think you developed that from the time in Afghanistan or the betrayal from your wife or like what ex-wife, excuse me, but like where do you think you got this? Like
Definitely not from that part.
Most people don't look at the world with those kinds of glasses, right? You've got sort of a rose-colored glass, and I'd like to think I have something similar because I believe that we're in control of our own destiny, and I don't ever want to be a victim of the world that I've created, of the life I get to lead. But you know, for you, how did you establish that?
I think part of it's that I surround myself with guys that have no problem calling me out when I'm thinking otherwise. Some of my closest friends, it's like the running joke that all my closest friends are the guy who will be like, knock the food out of your hand, like, you don't need to eat that fat ass. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Those are like somehow end up being all my closest friends. They're just like very, very almost David Goggins to the point where it's like, dude, it was just one brownie.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's what you said last night. I'm like, motherfucker, you know? So I surround myself with people like that, but also, yeah, maybe it is Afghanistan. I don't know. I've just always been kind of chill. Like there's a switch. And I will, you know, my COO would oust me on this. It is very hard to get me riled up. But then there's that point, and there's a couple of switches. I won't say what they are, but like once that happens, I get incredibly petty. And it is, he will tell you there are email threads where like someone threatened to sue me over something. And I like the internal lawyer comes out and I am like the pettiest human in the world. But generally it takes a lot to get me to be riled up because it's just, life is good, man. And if you choose, I don't know, like there's plenty of crap that goes wrong. I try to do really, really, really good at not worrying about things I can't control, not letting the media dictate, you know, like I during that whole COVID thing when there were all these riots going on and everyone convinced like the world's ending. I was like, dude, if I turn on the media, like the world's a shit show. Mm-hmm. But if I walk outside, everybody's in a great mood. Mm-hmm. None of the shit shows here. And I've realized most of my life when people tell you to scream about something or woe is me or oh this thing, it's like, dude, like people are happy. Whether they have a lot or a little, like people can choose to be happy. It's the people you're around. It's the community you're around. It's what you choose to focus on. And I don't know. That's a good question. I don't.
How do you take that mindset and instill it back into your children, right? Because this whole notion of entitlement, I believe, is true. And yet you live a financially free life. You live a very successful life. And you probably, like me, don't want to be burdened or problemed or, you know, you want to take advantage of your hard work and your success and make your life easier. But at the same time, you don't want to raise entitled little pricks. So how do you balance that?
It's funny because, one of my greatest pleasures in financial freedom has been the $50 an hour I pay for a lady to show up on Friday and she cleans my house and does my dishes and does my laundry and folds my clothes. Mm-hmm. And it's like having a wife, but she's only there for like 2 to 3 hours a week. So it's, you know,
you pay her to leave.
Yeah, it's great. And she's a great person and she has made my life incredibly easy. But I will laugh that with my ex, she is your very stereotypical nurture to a fault. She does not say no. My kids, so I had a stepson He's 16 now, and we talk a little bit, but I mean, I lost a lot of that. Probably don't need to go into the full details of the affair, but we'll just say like Jerry Springer would have taken us, and unfortunately, I lost part of that relationship with him, and I believe that was intentional on her end. That kid, he's 16. I helped raise him for 8.5 years. I don't think I've seen him do the laundry. I don't think I have seen him do dishes. My mom will tell you that she came over at one point and he was like, "Here, can you," with like a dish? And she was like, "It's right over there." And he's like, "Yeah, but my mom just takes it." And she's like, "You can put it in the," like it was this whole thing. My mom remembers it.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard for me to find that balance because like my son's 8. I get him currently Wednesdays and every other weekend. Probably just leave that part there for now because we can talk offline about some of that. He doesn't have a bedtime. She lets him have his phone in bed. He's on his phone TV. Like there are times where I'll call him, he doesn't answer. He'll call me back at like 9:45 at night. I'm like, dude, you should be in bed. There's no routine. There's no whatever. It's been very hard for me to try to establish that, and yet somehow my kid is wonderful. I can't tell you a time that I've seen him lose his cool. He's too logical for my own good. He calls me out on things. It's interesting because the more and this is not to discourage people as far as like what they try to do in parenting. Every time I'm around a kid that's been a pain and then I meet their parent, I'm like, ah. And so I think honestly, just live the life that you want your kid to live. I mean, I've had to have the conversation with my kid where he's like, "I'm thirsty." And I'm like, "Cool, the fridge is over there." And he's like, "Can you go?" "No. If you want it, go get it. You got to work for shit in life." But like, that's about the extent. Other than that, he's scared about this, that, and the other. But at home, it's at 8 or 9 o'clock. I put my phone down. I take his and put it on the charger. I'm like, "We don't use our phones after this time." And then, maybe we watch TV for a little bit. Then I kill it. And he's like, and I'm like, "You'll be fine." And then he's out. Yeah. And it's just, I think just being such a cliche. If you're a decent human, you raise decent humans.
Yeah.
There's no need to overthink it. And I mean, it's easy to say that when you look at like big picture, but I think most people would agree by the statement. Like if you see a hellion running around and then you meet their parents, it's generally not like the pastor of the church who's very disciplined and goes to the gym at 5 a.m. has this shit kid. It's the, overweight smoker mom who sleeps till 11 o'clock and doesn't know who baby daddy is, or the single dad who is just smashing people all over town. Like it is the parent who lives the life you don't envy, raises the kid you don't want your kid around. And I think I don't know.
So what I hear you saying is your kids watch more than they listen.
Yeah.
And they observe you and they absorb what they observe more than what you could preach.
Yeah. And I think the easiest drive home for that is if you ever met my dad, he is I don't know that I've ever seen him angry. He is the happiest man in the world. And you asked me about the rose-colored, like, takes a lot to rile you up. Like, I don't know. Well, probably has something to do with him. I don't know where he got it. My kid's the same way. My kid is a storyteller. It's funny, we go to the parent-teacher conferences, and they're like, "Hey, your kid's great. He's outperforming in math. He sucks at English, and he won't shut the fuck up in class." And I'm like, you know why? Because he's my kid. I could have told you that without coming to this stupid conference.
Yeah, yeah.
That to a T.
Yeah.
I failed in English class. Now I'm an author. Ha, ha, ha. Did great at math. And boy, if I wasn't the worst kid in the class, if you ask my teachers. But also doing fine in life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Do you think your dad would be as happy as he is today if he stayed in San Francisco?
No, absolutely not. Because he followed what he felt was his calling. And to the I give my parents so much. If you ever listen to this show, Mom and Dad, just remember, I busted your balls about this myself last week. So I'm calling you out, but I did it to your face first. They retired last year.
Okay.
And now they do the exact same thing they did when they were working, but for free. And I'm like, "What are you guys doing?" They're like, "Well, yeah, but we don't have to do the work between the conferences. We just go." They're always volunteering at these conferences. Like my mom broke her face. Sounds a little messed up. My mom slipped on the ice like 3 weeks ago. I mean, like when I say broke her face, it looked like she took a baseball bat to the face, like broken nose, mess. And she was super bummed because she had to miss volunteering at one of the events. And I'm like, you guys crack me up. You drive all over the country to go to these events that you used to get paid to be at, and you're retired, but you still do the same thing. And my dad's like, yeah, but I don't have to go to the office. I'm like, yeah, but okay, whatever. And so it's funny because I'm like, yeah, you can tell that was exactly where they wanted to be, because they retired and they still do it. And I think that's cool. And I don't know that there's a whole lot of people who have that kind of alignment in what they're doing, where they would do it for free.
Do you have that alignment in your life?
Well, I don't know that I would say I would do it for free, because I like the fact that I can afford my toys. Yeah, I think most of the people that are close to me would tell you that I won't say overly generous, because that sounds egotistical, but like I care too little about money, to a fault in business. And one of the things I envy about people who crush it with business is their ability to be a little bit more savage and cutthroat. I'm not that way. That's usually not what does it for me. And so, yeah, we give back, I don't know that I can say I would do it for free, but I mean, there is nothing I would rather be doing. And it's funny because like coming out here for this conference was great. I got to connect with a bunch of old friends and hang out. But I texted my COO on the first day. I was like, when we get home, I need to have a conversation with you. He's like, what's up? I was like, we need to do better about me running conferences past you before I say yes. He's like, why? I was like, because this is good. And I caught up with a ton of old friends. But this isn't my audience. Right. And I could have been home making a difference and like working on our business. And I'm kind of realizing that at this point. Like my biggest thing that I need to work on this year is the no. Yeah. I'm not good at no. And also I wouldn't be here. So, there are perks,
I'm
right?
not good at the no either. And what I've found is I could either try to stretch myself and get good at the no, or I can hire people, put them in a place and be like, you are the no person.
That's exactly what I'm working on. Yeah.
Because I can't say no.
Yeah.
I just have like a giving, bleeding heart. Probably because so many people gave to me on my journey.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I have a duty or an obligation to give it back. But
at the same time, no?
At the same time, I look at my calendar, I'm like, what in the heck am I doing?
Yeah.
Like I have no time to focus on what I want to focus on, what I need to focus on.
Yep.
And then I get home to my family and I'm like depleted.
Exactly.
Like that's not right either. So,
no, I agree. Yeah.
So it's a fun awareness or aha of the yeses get you to a certain point, but then the no's will take you to that next level. Yeah. And it's a little scary because you're looking at, hey, this is what's gotten me to where I am. And that's very powerful. But then to look in the mirror and go, but that's not going to get me to where I want to go or where I feel like I belong. Or to your point, like with the governor, like that's going to allow me to live with a governor on forever. Like I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah. There've been a lot of growing pains that I did not expect, and things that you almost can't talk through with people as the business grows. It's been funny. So Alex lived in Maui. He was Brandon's video guy for a while. And I lived in Oahu for 3 years when I was in the Marine Corps. And I was laughing with him because I was talking through some of the like growing pains of like making more money and all those weird things you work through. The hardest one for me being that 6 years ago, I worked like 100 hours a week and I made nothing on my business. And now I work, I don't know, call it 30 hours a week, right? A lot better balance. It's sometimes way more because I like what I do. I'll find myself in my office just working and I'm like, it's 11 o'clock at night. I should probably go to bed, but I'm happy with this. So I don't know that it's a workaholic side anymore, but I work way less than I used to, especially with the team. And I'm making an exorbitant amount more money. So like reconciling the dollar per hour difference there, it's not a internal like, oh, I'm not worth this much so much as it's just weird that things feel so easy right now and it flows and it's fun and it doesn't feel like work and more money's coming in than I've ever had to deal with. So like reconciling all that stuff, but I was laughing because I was like, dude, you know what this is like? It's like, what? It's like, this is like when you live on Hawaii for a year or two and you realize it sucks because you have to travel. There's like this huge long flights and the time difference makes everything hard and all this, and everything's perfect all the time. So there's never like, without a rainy day, you don't appreciate a sunny day the same. And I was like, but then you can't say anything. Because if you post online and you're like, oh my God, I'm so sick of Hawaii, all your friends are like, oh yeah, that really must suck.
Yeah, come back to the Midwest.
Yeah, it's like, I was like, that's what it feels like when you finally start succeeding in like your business, because you're like, who do I talk to about this problem? And it's only other business owners. It's that whole lonely at the, anyway, I'm rambling. But.
No, it's fascinating. And we were talking earlier, you finally pulled the trigger after 2.5 years of getting that car you've always wanted, you've always dreamed of. Why do you think you were depriving yourself of the joy that vehicle has brought you in the short amount of time you've owned it?
Dude, that's such a great question. Because, okay, let's be real. Financially, buying a car is a dumb idea.
Yeah,
There,
stupid.
yeah, I mean, now there's the argument that like you can buy, a nice, very niche, specced out GT40 and know that it'll go up in value if you don't drive it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drive it. I'm gonna drive the shit out of it. That is like I knew going into this that the car I bought was not going to be a value. It's not going to be an investment because I'm going to beat the crap out of it. And so I was looking and hunting auction sites for probably 2 years. So I guess for the preface for people who don't know is I've been a car guy, motorcycle guy my whole life. When I was 21, I had a Harley and I took a 30-day vacation from the Marine Corps and drove like 6,000 miles around the country on my own. I was broke and had no shame back then, so I put a sleeping bag on the back of my bike and had a handgun, and I parked at truck stops, and I figured if I put the motorcycle in a parking spot and I sleep next to it, A, no one's going to hit me because I'm in a motorcycle, and B, no one's going to rob me because they're going to assume the guy sleeping on the ground next to his motorcycle is crazy, and if they do, I've got a handgun and a sleeping bag with me. But like, I'm 21 years old, fresh out of Afghanistan, alone, driving through like Arizona on a motorcycle, just like living. I loved it. I've been a car guy, motorcycle guy my whole life. I had a Honda S2000 that I turbocharged, did all the work on in my garage. The only thing I didn't do was the custom exhaust and the dyno tune. I didn't own a dyno to tune it myself. I sold all of that. I sold the Harley to buy my first duplex. I sold the S2000 to buy my second duplex, and I sold my truck to do some maintenance on one of my properties at one point. And I was left with like a Ford Focus. And then I've had a couple. I was always known for. You even joked about it earlier. I've been known for road tripping for a long time. I had this diesel Jetta. I had 3 of them. And I mean, I'd put 35, 40,000 miles a year on those things, driving to conferences and networking with people along the way. And for years, I told myself, I'm going to roll this into the next property, and then I'll buy my car. I'll roll this into the next property, and then I'll buy my car. And then last year, with Matty A, it was, hey, if you clear off all your divorce debt and have a $100K revenue month, you are in the car. And then I cleared all my divorce debt, had a $100K revenue month, and I was like, well, let's wait till I get to 200. Well, let's see about 250. And then in January, when we hit 302, he was like, are you ever going to buy the fucking car? Or are you just going to like lie to yourself? I was like, ugh. And so, ironically, I went in the dealership. It wasn't the car I'd been looking at, but it was bang for buck. The new Z06 is almost untouchable, and it's half the cost of the Porsches. And it was just sitting there, specced out almost exactly like I would have wanted, the highest trim level, all the colors, and I was like, And the funny thing is, if you ask my COO this story, we walked out of the house, and the last thing he said to me on the way to the dealership was, can we agree that no matter what, it's a no today? You're not, because I was like, dude, I'm going to buy this stupid thing without any thought. He's like, no. And and he is very rational. He is not a money, spender. Yeah. And we get there, and he sat in the passenger seat, and he looked around the car, and after like 5 minutes, he looked at me and was like, you have to buy this car. And I was like, fuck, all right, I'm buying the car. And then I put the money down and bought the car and walked out. And you're right. I drove so there's a 500-mile break-in period, and I intentionally made it to where I would hit the 500 miles. I drove to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and to visit some old friends, and I would hit the 500 right around the time I was leaving town. And on the way back, I would take all the back roads in northern Arkansas to get home. And I wish I'd recorded that phone call with my COO. I should go find it on my phone because I called him like the moment it was broken in, and I was just like, I'd been in the car for like 10 minutes. I was like, dude, if I die tonight, just know that it was fucking happy. And he's like, that was the happiest I've heard you since we've known each other 4 years. It's like, I've never heard you that happy in your life. And I just realized like, dude, there's something for me. It's cars. Everybody has that thing with just absolute pure joy. And for me, it is high RPMs, taking a corner and just, hitting an apex and just ripping around a back road. And, that car is going to make me so much money this year. It is going to lose all its value. I'm going to put so many miles on it. I am going to beat the shit out of it. It is going to be destroyed. And sure, there's the argument that there's a networking with higher, other fancy car guys and whatever. But the reason it's going to make me money is because I now have a place where I can go drive when I need a moment to just have an idea. And that is the most meditative thing for me, is to shut all the like if you were to get in the Lotus that I've rented to drive up here, the music's off. It's just the engine. And for me, that is.
Why did you deprive yourself?
You can hear me talking about it, right? It's so weird. I'm such a nerd. It's such a car nerd.
But why did you deprive yourself of it for so long? Why didn't you think you were worthy of that sooner?
Because it's a bad investment. And in my head, I couldn't reconcile like, yeah, but it's, you're not there yet. That's more than what you're supposed to spend on a car. You're a finance guy and you're going to tell someone to not buy their Charger at whatever percent interest. And who are you to then buy some other dumb car and then I shit on gurus online all the time and I'm going to look like a guru. And there were all these weird things that just makes it really easy to be like, maybe I should just buy the apartment next.
Do you think the mushrooms helped you get through those limiting beliefs?
Oh, yeah.
That was part of it.
100%. The mushrooms was part of it. I have never felt such clarity and like confidence in who I was as the second time I did that. I don't know what it is. There's something about just like, I don't know. It's interesting. I grew up, I got drunk once in high school and it was not that drunk. It was like Waffle House drunk, but it wasn't like throwing up Waffle House drunk. There's a level there for us Midwest kids. I was a good kid. I didn't go into more examples, but I didn't do any drugs until after the military. Ironically, the first time I ever got high was at Park City. Funny enough, with a bunch of people I won't name that are also worth way more money than I am. And I was sitting in a room and I got peer pressured by, people who I'll name offline, but it's hilarious because they called me out on it the other day. Because now I'm like, dude, I used to drink a lot. Like that's a military thing. You drink, not like an excessive amount. I was never an alcoholic. But that was my release. I would, oh man, I need to relax. Let me go drink.
Well, that was a bonding thing, right?
It was.
Alcohol is a bonding thing in the military.
Yeah. It's that, and it's, man, how do I turn off my brain?
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, well, shoot, I got a car to turn off my brain. Or I pop an edible. But both of those are better than alcohol. And for a lot of reasons. Now, granted, you can kill yourself with a car, but I'd like to think I know how to drive and won't push it too hard. If I do, I'll die happy. But it's... I don't know why, like what part of me wants to, it's hard. It's almost like the financial freedom thing where in like the fire community where they're so strict with their budget that when they finally reach their numbers, they're like, one more year.
Yeah.
One more year.
Yeah.
And then when they finally get there, they never allow themselves to let the budget loosen up. Even if they're 4% withdrawal rate, they're crushing their goals and they could just stop spending. They never splurge. And it's like you get stuck in this world of like sacrifice, and at some point you have to reward yourself, or you'll never, like, what was it all for?
Yeah, it's all a muscle. Like I've been fortunate to recognize that early on in my journey, and I'll never forget. David was talking to a guy one time, and he was hoarding cash. He was sitting on like $5 million in cash, and David's like, "What are you waiting for?" It's like, "I'm waiting for the downturn, and then I'm going to go all in." And David's like, "Okay, let me ask you a question. You sat on the bench the entire game. The coach looks at you and says, 'Hey, there's a minute left. Get in the game. Are you going to be ready to go?'" He's like, "Probably not." He's like, "So you mean to tell me you're going to sit on $5 million cash, and when the bottom hits, you're going to have the balls, the courage, the stamina, the mental fortitude, the competence to go all in at that moment?" You're delusional. You got to play the game the entire journey. And yes, there are times to pull back a little bit, and there are times to go all in. And I've been fortunate to learn that early on in my journey, and I've spent stupid money on stupid things that people would be like, "You're an idiot." But it's brought me so much joy, and it's brought those around me so much joy that it makes putting in the time and the effort at work so much easier. I mean, we're getting ready to go to Disney next week for my child's spring break. 2 years ago, and I actually spoke about this at an event, we went to Disney and I splurged on the VIP experience. Like, absolutely have to do it before you die. It is stupid expensive.
Yep.
But it is by far one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. And so now we're going to Disney, and we're not going with a group of 10, we're going with a group of 19 of us. And I told my wife, I'm like, I think we got to do the VIP thing. And like I said that knowing I'm stroking the check. Like nobody else in this group is doing the VIP thing. Like they're all coming along on this journey. She's like, "Oh, it's so much money and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, but we still talk about that trip 2 years ago. Your dad still talks about it. My dad still talks about it. What's that worth? Like there's no amount of money I can." I'm like, "Fuck it, let's just do the VIP thing."
Yeah.
And so now in a week and a half, we're going to Disney, and half the group we're going with doesn't know they're doing the VIP thing because we've kept it a secret. But the girl that knows we're doing the VIP thing that helped arrange all the other family's information for me is like a child at Toys R Us, which I know is out of business, but a child at Toys R Us, like, "I've always wanted to do this. I never thought we were going to do this. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait."
Yeah.
It's like, why deprive yourself of the joy?
I agree. I think the further along I get, and it's taken me a while to begin spending on it, but quality of life and experiences. And everyone says, oh, yeah, spend money on experiences, but quality of life is just as important. I bought a hot tub in December. I've joked about having a hot tub for years. And now there's like, you can go on my Instagram. You probably saw the picture of me when it snowed in Missouri, and I'm in like my short shorts with a cigar, like, woo! And it's like, I literally told my COO, I was like, don't come into work until noon.
Yeah.
And he's like, are the roads that bad? I was like, no, I'm just going to do nothing, and I'm going to smoke a cigar, have a coffee, and sit in the hot tub for like 3 hours.
Just enjoy
with
it.
my dog and like whatever. And I'm going to just do whatever. And he was like, okay. Yeah. And then, and it was great. And it's just like peaceful. It's great. And I'm like, man, the more you lean into some of that, and the Disney thing, I do want to do that. And it's cool that you're surprising. There's something fun to be said for, in Abundance, we all do the credit card roulette.
Yeah, credit card roulette.
It's like the running joke. But it's like, everyone's like, well, what happens if you get the bill? Like, well, then you get to bless all your friends. That's like honestly the best thing.
Yeah, you get the privilege. And if you want to buy, your card never gets pulled last. Like,
I know.
I always want to buy because I think it's like the greatest privilege to be able to have an amazing meal and be the one that writes the check. Like, it's just such a cool honor.
Yeah.
And if you want to win, you never lose at credit card roulette, quote unquote, right? Like, it's the guy who's like sweating in the corner. His wife doesn't want to know that he did this. Doesn't really know how he's going to pay for the dinner, and then he's the one that always loses.
It is funny when you that kind of experience, which is dead on, will really bring home manifestation to you, because you're like, if you worry about the thing, it happens. Always. And if you're like, oh, whatever. It's funny. I joke with people. I'm like, you know why I live in Missouri? Because I can Irish goodbye and pay for dinner, and it never costs me more than it would to buy a steak for myself in somewhere like Austin.
Yeah.
I can go to Three Forks here,
yeah,
and I can spend $200 or $300 on a dinner for me.
Yep.
And I ate out with 9 people in Tennessee, and I dropped the bill and walked out and didn't tell any of them. And it was like, after tip, I think it was like $230.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're like, oh, thanks. I'm like, dude, it was nothing. But the gesture, it's fun. It's fun to be able to.
It's fun to be able to bless others.
Should also probably preface, if you hear this part of the podcast, I don't always pay for dinner, so don't have expectations.
So people are listening to this. They've served, have family members that served, thinking about serving. How do they find you? How do they find the War Room? How do they tap into what you've done in the community you've created?
Yeah. They go to thebestpodcastguest.com, and they can download my free book there and find all my social. But really, if you go to Facebook and you go to Military Millionaire, we have a Facebook group with like 74,000 people in it. And that's probably the best spot to start, because it's free. It'll introduce you to the YouTube and everything else, and a little bit of the community. And if they want to talk to me, I still respond to all my Instagram DMs on my own. And again, that's, from Military to Millionaire. You can type that in pretty much anywhere. But
thank you so much, man. Thanks for your service.
I appreciate it. It's been fun. It's been
awesome,
good,
man.
Good to be on.
Thanks.